So these are the areas that I would personally consider. Hi everyone, welcome back. We just saw the results of the latest new launch sale over the last weekend, and let's go through how they did, okay? So I think the one in the center of attention is definitely River Green by Wing Tai, right? And they did superbly well. They sold 88%, okay? And at an average price of 3,130. So congratulations to River Green, and for those of you who managed to get a unit, congratulations as well. But it's not just River Green. On the same time, right, we also have Promenade Peak, right, on the launch day. Also not too shabby, so about 54%, slightly higher PSF on average, about 3,343 PSF. And we also have a OCR project, and that is Canberra Crescent Residence, okay, which sold 40% on the launch weekend at quite a good average price of less than 2,000 per square foot, right? So all these are very encouraging signs of the Singapore property market, and this is continuing from what we saw earlier on, right, where Lindenwood sold 94.5% on the launch day, okay? But really going into this season, right, there was also a bit of trepidation because before Lindenwood, there were also some new launches that didn't do exactly as well, right? So we saw certain areas, for example, One Marina Gardens only sold about 38% on their new launch weekend, and also Bloomsbury selling just about 25% on their first weekend. But the most shocking one, okay, has to be the W Residence Marina View, which reportedly, okay, I'm not quite sure whether is it already cleared, but reportedly they said that there were only 2 units that were booked, okay? So it's not even that it's sold or anything, it's just booked. So was there any sale? I'm not quite sure at this moment. We just have to wait for a while for the numbers to come out. But the good news is that even for One Marina Gardens and Bloomsbury, although they didn't have blockbuster launch weekend like Lindenwood, but subsequently, as they started to continue to sell, you can see that the results started to trickle in, right? So over here, Bloomsbury Residences sold about 55% as of recording this, right? And One Marina Garden OMG sold about 54% as well. So overall, you can see that the appetite, right, the buying power in Singapore property is still very strong. Good projects sell out really fast, and even projects that didn't do so well at the very beginning, subsequently, once the buyer realized that, hey, maybe I didn't get Lindenwood or I didn't get the project that I wanted, now they will revisit older projects like this. But just before you jump into new launches, I just want to share with you guys is that the prices can vary quite wildly, right? So if you look over here on the July 17 article, the article actually said that Wing Tai will launch River Green from 2,846 PSF onwards, but actually the average PSF is much higher at about 3,130 per square foot. Even as the demand is strong, one thing that buyers are all looking at is price, right? Many people are quite price sensitive right now. And the next thing I want to talk about is not just the demand side of the picture, but the supply, okay? So we just got the latest data of the pipeline of supply of private residential units in Singapore by their year of completion, okay? So for those of you who are not very familiar with this is actually a data set that the government has pushed out to share with us by which year they will expect how many units to be completed. Okay, just to be clear, this is not the units that are launching, right? So it's not referring to Lindenwood, or Bloomsbury Residences this year. It's referring to those projects that were launched maybe 4 years or even 5 years in the past, and now they are ready to be used, right? The owners are going to collect their keys. So if you see over here back in 2023, the projection was that 2025 and 2026 onwards is going to be a low supply period, okay? And going into 2024, the projection continues so, right? So back in 2024, they projected that in 2025, we're just going to have about 7,000 units completed, and 2026, about close to 9,000 units completed. But if you look at the current numbers and seeing how it evolves, right, there are some very interesting observations, okay? Is that by the first quarter this year, they say that the numbers in 2026 is going to be around just 8,000, okay? Comparing to previously we saw about 9,000, okay? And they revised that slightly upwards for next year, 2026, to be about 8,195, okay? And interestingly, the 2027 and 2028 projection also changed quite a lot, right? So for 2028 in particular, the projection previously was 12,300 plus units. Okay, now it's only about 11,500 plus units. So you can see where did all these units disappear into or shifted, postponed into. It is actually to beyond 2028, right? So beyond 2028, it was previously projected to be about 16,000, and right now they are looking at, beyond that, they are looking at 22,000. For the next couple of years, including this year in 2025, right, we're going to see a pretty low volume period, right, for this whole period. Now, to help you to understand it better, what I did is I kind of superimposed the chart into one collective chart, right, to see the long-term supply that we had in the past, okay? So if you look at the past supply, that means number of units that's been completed each year, okay? So generally it's about 8,000. We had a very low year during COVID, and then we slowly ramp it up. And of course, 2023 is when it was blockbuster. So everything culminated at this point. And after that, actually, we saw the supply drop down again. And this year, we are reaching another low at just about 6,000 plus units. So this is based on their current projection. Okay, we only have 2 quarters of data so far. So if it goes according to what is planned, it's still going to be a low supply year in 2025. Okay, and going forward, even 2026 all the way to 2028, it doesn't seem like the supply is going to be much higher from here. One thing to take note of is that previously they projected beyond 2027 to be around 20,000 units, and that gave people an impression that maybe 2028 we're going to have a bumper crop of supply. But the truth is, it is not going to be all these units because this is a cumulative number going to the future. So right now, if we look at just 2028 itself, it's just about 11,500 plus units. So I would say right now is quite an interesting dynamics whereby the demand is clearly there, seeing how the new launches are selling very well. But we know that the units that are available for purchase for those people who cannot buy new launches, right? There is not much supply, new supply going to the market as well. So what is happening here, right? So right now we see that there is not enough new TOP units, just about 6,000 this year. So the buyers are just flocking towards new launches. But the new launch prices are really quite high right now, and especially for those in prime location, very near MRT, it's not just if you're willing to pay, you would also need to depend on luck, right? You need the ballot to go through in order for you to purchase a property. So in fact, rather than looking at just new launches and very freshly built condos, I think buyers has been flocking towards resale. Now, why do I say that? Because if you look at just the pure property price index data over here, which is the latest one, you can actually see that, hey, it doesn't seem like non-landed property has increased much, right? Overall, it says it only went up by 0.7%. However, this is because this includes other information such as new launch and, sub-sale. But if you just strip it down to just purely resale, this is what you will see. So over here, you can see that while the sub-sale prices has weakened a little bit, right? But the resale prices actually in the last quarter has increased quite strongly, right? About a 2% increase. And if you break down the resale prices increase into different regions, you can see that all 3 regions have increased as well. So that's why I believe right now the buyers are not just buying into new launch. If they can't do it, right, and there's not enough supply, this is like a perfect formula pushing up the resale prices over here. Now, of course, the question is where to buy, right? So what I want to do is to follow the money. Now, in Singapore, the truth is that the majority of the housing is still the public housing or HDB system. So I want to look at, in this HDB trend that is going up steadily, where are the areas that are doing really well? So what I did was I took the price back in 2020 and compared it to today, and I want to see which town is actually doing the best in terms of price appreciation. So you can see over here, these are the top 8 towns, which include Toa Payoh, Sembawang, Bukit Batok, Kallang Wangpo, Choa Chu Kang, Woodlands, Tampines, and Hougang region. And it ranges between 80% increase to about 60% increase. So these are really HDB sellers with a lot of buying powers in their hand. They are literally sitting on a gold mine, which if they want to, they can actually convert this amount of money to buying into a private property. And I redid the calculation again for the 5-room configuration, and these are the top 8s. And you can see that really, when you're looking at 5-room, it is not always the very central region that does really well. It is actually more on the OCR region, right? So when you're looking at this, when you're buying a resale property, do think about, hey, what are your future buyers considering? And I would say this will be the few areas that I'll be looking at if I were to buy a resale condo. Alright, just to give you guys an example of one of my one-on-one consultation that I did about 5 years ago, right? Time really flies, where I told him, hey, you can look at an area over here where that is a 3-bedder over here. And when they first bought it, the PSF was only 1,245. And when they sold it last year, it was around 1,700. So in just a period of 4 to 5 years, they made more than $500,000 over here. Another example will be over here in the RCR region, where they first bought it at 1,531. And this is a 3-bedder at about 1,163 square feet. And they made about 480,000 when they sold it in 2024. Is it always new launch that makes the most profit? The answer is no, right? As buyers, as investors, your job is to find the best out there to invest, right? And it is about finding that hidden gem. Okay, so it's not always the new launches. And in fact, right now, my opinion is that with new launch prices being so high, right, and there's not enough supply coming into the TOP market, I think this is where the resale market will start to shine again. So what do you think about the recent property movement, and are you also looking at resale market? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.